Jodie Foster is so funny. Sorry. I don't know where that
I don't know where we got.
Well, I don't know where my brain jumped to that.
Hi, we're the Book Mavens. I'm Amanda, she's Rachel, and this week we are discussing the 9th book in the Realm of the Elderling series and the 3rd book in the Tawny Man trilogy, Fool's Fate.
Well, it was a big book.
Oofa.
And like all of her other trilogies thus far, a lot gets resolved in the end. Her pacing, though, is phenomenal. I think ever since the very first book she wrote, Assassin's Apprentice, there it is. You know, to me, the pacing in that book, or that trilogy in general, felt a little rushed. But I feel like the Live Ship Traders and this one, her pacing is really on point. So this book, there's a lot of things going on. There is tremendous character development, of course, with Fitz and the Fool and everyone else in the cast of characters for these books. But the pacing was phenomenal. You were involved. This was a book that I stayed up very, very late to read through. You kept getting drawn in. I felt this was probably the most involved book that she's written thus far, or that I've read that she's written.
It was definitely the most emotionally involved. Like,
I had to know what was going to happen with these characters. I had to know. And with Fitz being in his mid-30s and really kind of taking charge of his own life instead of being such a tool to be used by others. And not only that, but also recognizing who he is as the changer and kind of claiming that power for himself, especially in regards to what happens with the fool, towards the latter part of the book. I can't talk today. Towards the latter part of the book, that it really, really shows how much he's grown. And overall, this is a just tremendously great book. We really see Fitz go on. They're on another adventure. They're out to try and find Icefire and fulfill Dutiful's pledge to the Narcheska to lay the head of the black dragon on her mother's hearth. That's to the letter of what the agreement was. And of course, we're going to talk more about Thick, who was a member of the coterie that we did not really address in the first two, simply because his role has become bigger with each book. And Thick is a very interesting character. He is somewhat mentally deficient, or at least in terms of how his brain is wired differently, how he sees things, and how he is constantly, consistently in the skill all the time. And he's extremely powerful in the skill. So he is brought into the coterie. But Thick is a very interesting character. I did think throughout this book that Fitz was going to die. There was a lot of obstacles to Fitz having to Thick having to travel to the Narcheska's homeland, the out islands. They're just like big glaciers in a lot of areas, and they have to cross this glacier, and Thick was not about it. He was not about being on the boat. He gets horribly sick. And but he doesn't. He makes it through.
I feel sick on some of that with the traveling. It's like
and the bad food. He was just not about it. He wasn't getting back on a boat. They have to drug him. It's just all kinds of crazy things.
I just want to go home.
But his personality, his honesty is very refreshing. I like the way that Hobb talks about kind of mental differences and different types of intelligence. It's really, really interesting because they don't really identify specifically, what's going on. But to me, it was like a cross between maybe someone with Down syndrome and someone with autism. It's kind of those qualities, fixations.
I loved, she said,
inability to empathize, things like that. It really comes across well. She does a really good job with that. I find it to be very respectful, very honest. And not just that, but also how people who were living in close quarters and having to work with people who do kind of think their way through like he does, and how much of an adjustment that is. And I think it's a real eye-opener, and I really liked it. I thought it was really well done.
I love the way she describes, like, it takes a long time in the series for them to really understand Thick, that Thick is always in the skill, number one, and that's a huge difference. The skill is not something he like decides, okay, I'm going to skill now. He's always in it. and that he hears things or sees things very musically, like that his brain is just processing what he's experiencing in a different way, specifically through music. And that once I understand that, like, Thick is not, he picks up on different things because he's looking at it differently, which I love. And I do, like you said about the human reactions, I think there's some really great commentary in there about how he's viewed in different situations. He's viewed with tolerance, he's viewed with disgust, he's viewed with, there's just all these different reactions to him as someone who is different. And then at the end, when they see how useful he can be to them, because in the end he has learned how to heal, to skill heal, and because he's so powerful at it,
he's really good at it.
He's very good at it and can do it very quickly, and he ends up healing a lot of the injured in one of the last battles. And then they are suddenly celebrating him. And they all want to be his friend, and like there's an uncomfortableness to that, and Fitz, I think, articulates that really well. That he's uncomfortable with how all of these people who were looking at him with disdain are suddenly welcoming him in, and Thick lives in the moment. Thick and Night Eyes, I think, have that in common. They just live in the moment, in the now, and they are actually experiencing what is happening to them in the moment without worry about the past or the future per se. And so Thick is he's just accepting it as what is. And so he is an interesting character. He's so frustrating for Fitz sometimes.
Oh yes. Well, he's very stubborn and he doesn't want to cooperate. He wants to do things on his terms. So they have to kind of cajole him into doing a lot of things. And it's very, very tricky, or resort to drugging him.
Well, and there's the one scene where he's like, we're going to do this, but you better wake him up because he likes to eat first. We got to feed him. We want him to do this. And I was like,
yeah. And
I understand that. I'm much happier.
He forms quite a good bond with Nettle. And Nettle, of course, is not part of the coterie. She is communicating. She's tremendously gifted with kind of dream skilling. And so she's cool. So she's able to get into she's been communicating, we know this already, with Fitz in their dreams. Like, he's been part of her life forever. And she has created this kind of wolf man, kind of werewolfy, I guess, persona for him.
Shadow wolf.
In her dreams, which she can control quite a bit. And I do love all of her dream scenes, not just with Thick, because she's able to go into Thick's memories and create a safe place for him to go when he's very, very stressed. And she's really, really helpful in that. But not just that, I love her interactions with Tintaglia, because we know Tintaglia has a very vested interest in them finding the black dragon, right? So Tintaglia has just been like trying to break into Fitz's brain.
We don't know anything, dragon. Back off.
But she gets into Nettle's dreams, and Nettle's like, I don't need you here, and like shrinks her down and just like shoves her out of the dreams. And Tintaglia doesn't have those powers.
I love her
when Nettle's controlling the dreams. So I do like that. I like her sense of control over those situations. I found those scenes to be really, really enjoyable.
I love that. Like, so Nettle and Thick, who are largely self-taught, like there is some influence with Fitz because he, intentionally or not, had skill dreamed with Nettle as a young child. Same thing with Dutiful, like intentional or not, but they've learned to manage the skill largely on their own. And like Thick and Nettle both have this same kind of like, just do it, just fix it. She's like, it's a dream. Dream this instead. And they're like, how? And she's like, oh my gosh, these people.
She gets very short with them. Like,
But I love, there was one point where Nettle, she's like, Tintaglia is just like me, so I worked her. Like, I knew what buttons to push, because she's like, she's just like me. You prick her pride a little bit, and then she's got to prove to you that she can do it. So I went in there and I just pricked her pride a little bit. And I just loved it, because she's just so, she's not impressed. Nettle is not impressed by that.
Yeah, she's a straight shooter, and I like that.
When Dutiful for her skill dreams into one of her dreams, she says, Prince, I doubt it very much. She calls him because she's like, who?
She doesn't believe that.
Yeah, she's like, you are so rude. How dare you bust up in my dream? He goes, I'm the prince, and I demand to know more. She goes, okay, Prince.
Well, he is just totally
gobsmacked
by his interaction with her. He's like, oh. But I do like. Did he find out it was in the last book or this one?
Oh, this one.
Yeah, that they're actually cousins, and he's pretty PO'd the fact that he did not know that.
He is, and I
because he
understand
was so
that.
isolated.
He is, and I understand that. But I also think, like, that's a really great scene where Dutiful confronts them about Nettle and, like, tell me, like, he goes, what will it take to shake all the secrets out of you two? Like, because he's talking to Chade and Fitz. He goes, it was like, what more do I have to do to get you to tell me what I need to know? But also, I think that
it's a little parallel with Fitz, I think.
It is a little bit of a parallel.
Never, I mean, the first trilogy never knew what the whole story was for anything.
And it's so frustrating.
And he demands it now, which I like about that.
I love. And Dutiful, I respect Dutiful as a character a lot.
I really like him.
I understand that as the future king, he has to do a lot of things. Like, he makes Nettle go to Buckkeep. He makes Fitz realize that, like, she's not safe, and I'm going to take that decision out of your hands. And if she discovers who you are, then that's just how it's going to be. And that's really crushing for Fitz, but also, like, it's a moment for Dutiful. I think that Dutiful gives Fitz more respect and more autonomy than any other leadership character he's ever been given.
Well, but I think Dutiful is in a position in which to be able to do so. He's not king yet. He doesn't have the same level of responsibility, but he still has a tremendous amount of power being the prince, right? Or the king. Well, he's not king in waiting yet, but the prince that he can go ahead and make.
And because they're away, like, because there's not Katrikin to counsel with or the dukes, like, they are in this isolated environment, and so, like, he is the king of the hill, if you will, king of the glacier. But, like, I really respect that he gives Fitz a lot more, even when he's upset with him. Like, there are several scenes that come to mind. Like, there's one where he says, I'm going to give the choice to you, Fitz. And Fitz is like, that is more than any other Varsity or any other person in my life has ever given me. And this is coming from Dutiful, who's a teenager. And then
we have to excuse the adolescents,
right? At some point,
they're always in, like, these leadership positions, making these tremendous decisions.
Dutiful and the Narcheska, I think, really become adults in the eyes of those around them. Like, their age, they are young, but that no longer is perceived to matter in the weight of their experience. Right? Like, once all is brought to light about what they've been facing and doing, they're really, they really come into their own in terms of, like, leadership capacity and asserting their authority. And, like, they really are adults at that point, young as they are. But let's talk about the connections from the first Varsity book in terms of, we finally get to understand what motivated the Out-Islanders to attack the Six Duchies in the first place, and what the Pale Woman is, and finally what forging is. Okay, so it turns out that the Pale Woman is the false white prophet, because the fool is the real one for the time, apparently. But she started forging. She started manipulating them into giving her people and resources by kidnapping Out-Island's clan members and doing the same thing. We're like, I will return them to you unless, here's the difference. Being buried in your ancestral lands is a huge cultural marker. She won't give the bodies back. So that's kind of a slight difference in that blackmailing type system. Is like, she's like,
this is why the Narcheska asked this.
Yeah,
it's important,
guys. We find out. Let me back that up. So we find that she has been manipulating them basically by forging. She's been terrorizing the Out-Islands the same way that they eventually terrorized the Six Duchies, which is all the Pale Woman's doing. But you discover that what has driven the Narcheska into making this arrangement and then making this challenge to Dutiful, which her own people are against in many ways. They're like, this is the fickleness of a woman, and she won't give in. She's like, no, it isn't. I did this, and he's going to do it in the end. Is because her mother and her younger sister have been taken. They die. She actually doesn't believe they're alive.
No, she really doesn't. It's all about recovering the bodies.
Yeah, so the challenge is really because she wants their bodies back to bury them in their clan lands, because that's how important it is to them. So this whole thing is really... On the one hand, she's being told to do it by the Pale Woman, like, to get them to come. And on the other hand, like, she's doing it because she's been told they'll give her back the bodies. Like, that's her motivation. The Pale Woman says, if you get them here, you get them to kill the dragon, I'll give you back the bodies.
I mean, it's all been about Fitz, really. It was to get Fitz
it was
there
all
because
to get
Fitz
Fitz
is
there.
the changer.
Without going into too much detail, because I just can't handle it. She is horrifying.
But she's like a true villain. Like, there's
nothing.
There's no empathy you could have for her character.
The worst of the worst of the most awfulest.
But she can't even be, like, to me, it's a different conversation. There's no gray area like we had with Kenneth. There we go. With Kenneth. No. She's just bad. She's bad.
She's bad. She's real bad. She's bad. So finally, they're all on the same page and being honest with each other. We're on this glacier. We found the dragon.
Vic is miserable.
Vic is so unhappy. He just wants to go home.
It's important to understand the changer in terms of what change is supposed to happen. And everything is about the dragons. Everything is about preserving the dragons. So you have the pale woman who's trying to eliminate. Now that Tintaglia is out, she's a female dragon. Well, if she eliminates the only male,
then that's it.
Then the dragons are going to die. Yeah. And so we'll come back to the cocoon dragons that were
we'll come back to them in a minute. But
and so that's it. So she figures if she can kill the black dragon, it's done. Even if Tintaglia is still around, she can't make by herself. It's over. So that's the big thing. So with the Fool,
he wants to save
their whole purpose, is to save the dragon. So that they are, I don't know if it's like when you eliminate the predator, right? The apex predator, which is what a dragon is, it causes everything to crumble, right? So it's about trying to preserve, the apex predator, even though that's going to come with some cost to humans because they are so highly intelligent.
I do think that's fine.
It's a balance.
The Fool doesn't really understand why the dragons are so important per se either. He just knows that he needs to save them. The only thing he really talks about is how the dragons will help keep the humans in check because they're both, and vice versa. Because they're also intelligent, because they are competitive with each other, they will keep the other from just basically dominating the planet.
The balance.
Okay, so then they get Icefire out of the ice.
I mean, he is down there. Like, they're like up at the top, like with pickaxes trying to bust through. Work. They end up finding tunnels. Fitz and the Fool find the tunnels. They end up in the Pale Woman's lair, which is because she can tunnel under and you can actually touch the dragon through the tunnels underneath. Because she tried to kill him, but you can't because their scales make them kind of impenetrable. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. And then Shade has been through everything. He does these little experiments, which I think are really funny. I think those are comedic elements where he is experimenting with bombs. Okay,
yeah,
basically gunpowder to blow things up. So he brought some of his casks of things that he's been working on. So they literally try to blow out the dragon. I think that's eventually how they get him out.
That is how they get him out. Yeah. So the Pale Woman is finally she's trying to create a stone dragon. The way that Verity and then tried to create a stone dragon. Except her dragon is forced. It's made from this is how people are forged. They force them to touch the dragon until they die. And so because it's not by choice, this dragon is basically all of the worst, most horrifying terror, like the terror. And so this dragon is mad. Like it's not a stable dragon. And so
Robred's the last, right? Robred goes into the dragon. Yep, he's being held captive by her, just miserable. Everyone is. She has forged ones that are working for her, that are under her control. She learns how to control the forged ones, of course.
Yeah, so that's what you learn.
They find the mother and sister of Narcheska in her little jail that she's got down there. They have been forged. They're still alive, but have been forged.
They have been forged. There's this very cool dragon fight between the stone dragon and Icefire and
Tintaglia.
And Tintaglia. Okay.
She can hear him. He trumpets or something or other. They've alerted. No, didn't they send out a message to her?
Yeah, she's on the way.
She's on the way.
On the way.
Well, because she's mad. She thinks they've done something to the dragon and they're trying to communicate to her. No, they're trying to get him out of the ice. I know that she was a little confused.
Yeah, she gets a little confused by it. But anyway, she gets there and realizes what's happening and they get him free and then the stone dragon comes to life. And is trying to kill the thing.
And Icefire's look a little rough.
Icefire
in that ice for so long. He's kind of scraggly. He's got holes in his wings, and he's like, a dude dies, he eats him. Like this.
Okay, Burrick has shown up on this island. Can we talk about how excited I was to see?
We need to talk about Swift.
So, okay.
Swift is Burke and Molly's son. He's one of the twins, and he is witted. And of course, we know Burke doesn't want anything to do with the wit.
Nope.
And so Swift is like, I'm not going to ignore this whole part of myself. So he runs off, of course, to Buckkeep. After everything with the piebalds and the witted has come out, he wants a place. He wants to learn.
Well, okay.
That's terrible.
So Swift has ignored Fitz. Fitz told him to go home because he found out that he lied to be there, to come to Buckkeep. And he tried to send him home. And then, surprise, surprise, they're on the boats and there's Swift. He has paged himself
to
Webb. He's made himself Webb's page. And Webb is a little bit kind of on the in-between. He's like, I'm not going to ignore this child who has this gift. I'm not going to send, so he's going to teach him. Anyway, so Swift is on the island with them. And then, okay, so they're on this island. Fitz has almost died. Par for the course at this point.
No. It's
Whatever.
a given.
They think Fitz died. He didn't. I feel like that. We should have kept
when they fell in the hole, the big crevasse? Which time are you talking about?
No, the time when Burke shows up and says no, because his shoulder's dislocated. This is when they got out of the tunnels.
Okay, gotcha.
And
they thought he had died.
They thought he had died.
Fallen in the crevasse.
Yeah, he hadn't, because he got separated from Thick, and his shoulder's dislocated. And they're like, "We thought you were dead." He wasn't. He's we should have kept telling how many times he doesn't die. So he
dies
and then he hears Burke's voice, and it's just like. And for Fitz, it's so beautiful because for Fitz, Burke is he's the parent. He's that ultimate comfort. And Burke is the same way. Burke immediately starts fussing at everybody around him.
Well, Burke is there because he goes to Buckkeep looking for his son. Katrikin sits him down and tells him everything that has happened.
Yeah.
So Burke now knows
Fitz is alive.
Yeah. He knew, though, before that Fitz was alive. Yeah.
He's here to get his son, and that would include Fitz. He's here to help Fitz too. And he's really here. It's just, anyway, I'm just so happy that Burke is there. Okay, back to the dragon.
We're talking about Swift and the dragon, the stone dragon.
Yeah.
Swift.
Okay, so Icefire is being attacked by the stone dragon.
And Tintaglia.
And Tintaglia is there.
Down Tintaglia.
And Tintaglia is much smaller than those two dragons. And so she's helping, but she ain't making a huge difference. But,
He's unfamiliar with fighting as well.
Right. So Burke can't see. He's got cataracts and he's almost blind. And Swift, he's like, if you put me there, they're digging him out. They're digging out. They're trying to dig out Icefire. He says, if you tell me where to dig, I can still dig. Okay. They're digging. And the stone dragon turns on them and he's coming for them. And Swift, brave Swift. Swift is out there with his bow and arrow, and he is firing arrows because the dragon has turned on them. He's coming right towards him and his father, and he's firing arrows that are doing nothing. And he gets very close, and Burke leaps in front of Swift and sends out such a repelling wave of the wit that it basically drops the stone dragon. It's not dead, but it basically stuns him. He stops moving. Mm-hmm. He's sunk down on his tracks, and that allows Swift to use what is, we find out, a wizard wood arrow that the fool gave him, and he shoots him through the eye, and that kills him. So Swift kills the dragon.
Yeah,
but Burke, guys, for love of his child,
steps in
front of him and sends this immensely more powerful, and they all describe it as more powerful than any wit they've ever felt. So it turns out not only does Burke have the wit, he is incredibly powerful in the wit. And so, but in all of the aftermath of that, Burke is gravely injured. He's swatted. He's swatted and thrown aside by the stone dragon once it starts to recover, and that's when Swift shoots him through the eye, and Burke is dying.
They do try to heal Burke. They all come together, the whole coterie, Thick Thick can't get through because Burke had been blocked.
He'd been sealed by chivalry so that no one else could use him for the skill. And that in the end makes it impossible for them to heal him. But
it's not an instant death. I mean, he lingers for days.
But that allows, I think, a lot of closure. So Swift, who had this, he hated his father for a long time, like, why wouldn't you let me use this wit? Finally, like, comes to understand his father, and they love, like, I think they've accepted each other, and this love, he gets that closure, but he also has these moments with Fitz where he finally admits, he goes, I was the better man for Molly, which is so great, but he also says, but she would have picked you. It's such a beautiful moment for them, and Burke makes Fitz promise to take care of his children. Mm-hmm. And he says that, he goes, and like Fitz, there's this great line, he goes, what this like circular web that we've woven. You took care of Chivalry's child after Chivalry married the woman you loved, and now you took care of my child and married Molly, and now you have children and you want me to take care of them. He goes, yes, it's complicated and messy, and I want you to do it. Because he trusts Fitz. And
he loves Fitz.
Oh, guys, the same way I cried with Night Eyes. Burke and Night Eyes for me, for this series, were just, and Burke, he's just noble to the end. And I just cried. I cried. I was in a hotel. And I just was like crying. I had to put down the book. I had to put down the book for a minute and like, I've loved Burke since book 1. Review the tape.
Well, the thing about Burke that I like, okay, and this in terms of talking to Fitz, is that Fitz always carried around this guilt. Okay, that if Burke knew that Fitz was alive, that he would be just inundated with all this guilt for taking on Molly and for marrying Molly. And then for him to say for Burke to say to him that he was the better man for Molly. That was such a good moment. It was I love that. Well, I like that. I love that's very human, and that he was able to let that.
And I love that Molly got to have her say on that too, because in one of their conversations at the end, Molly says,
so objectified.
She said that, she goes, I love how you both had these conversations like I had no choice in the matter. She goes, if anything,
she's a snappy woman, that Molly. I haven't talked about how they unforged them either, because the mother.
Okay, when Swift killed the dragon, all of those memories are released. And so suddenly, all of these forged ones
that are still alive,
that are there. So they're her servants and the other prisoners, and then Archeska's mother and her sister.
The lifting of a spell.
The lifting of the spell, including Riddle. Mm-hmm. So it all, and this may be the most cruel part of it all, is that who they were before comes back to them, but it does not erase the time that they've been forged. They know and remember what they did while they were forged.
Yeah.
And I think intellectually they understand, like Riddle understands he was not himself, but he will carry that with him.
He wasn't forged too long either. I mean, yeah.
Right. He'd only been forged a little while, but like all those guards.
They've been there for years.
Who've been there for years. They know exactly what they did at her command to other people. They know exactly the horrors that they had a hand in inflicting on others. And I think that might be one of the most cruel twists of the whole forging and the way the memory stones were used, is that
Fitz has to, of course, embrace his role as the changer, and how his relationship finally with the Fool, where he's able to let go of these barriers that he's tried to create between him and the Fool. Mm-hmm. So when the Fool tells him and makes that comparison, right, with Night Eyes, because Fitz has been challenged in terms of having a sexual relationship or some kind of abnormal relationship with the Fool, and that made Fitz very uncomfortable.
And of course, huge fight about it. Had a huge fight about it, which really I think was more about his grief with Night Eyes than anything else. But I think it was.
He's always very concerned about how people see him.
That's true. I think he would have avoided it if.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. He was not because of Jack kind of really threw it in his face. But but when the Fool has always tried to talk to him in terms of what love really is, and it's he's not going to put those kinds of, I don't want to say labels. But those kind of restrictions, and it's just this free-flowing thing, and he's never asked for that kind of relationship from Fitz. So Fitz always he jumped the gun on that, and the Fool always challenges him on that. But through this experience and going to the glacier, and then the challenge, of course, between the Fool and the Pale Woman, that
was brutal.
It is brutal. And so she ends up, I got hairballs over me, that he ends up getting taken by the Pale Woman and just tortured to death. He's dead. He's dead.
Yeah.
And Fitz, when they're sailing back, Birch, of course, is on the verge of death. They're on a boat. They're loading the boat to get on.
Back.
And Fitz says, no, I'm not going to leave the Fool here. I will not leave him here on this glacier. I will go and recover his body.
It was so sweet.
I will skill out, and you can send a boat. In 2 weeks. I think they said, 2 weeks?
They did give him 2 weeks, and I just thought it was so... I loved his he needed the closure to see the Fool's body.
It was very important.
But I love it. Said he always hated to be cold. I won't leave him here. Yeah. It was just... It was beautiful.
That kind of relationship, I wish that they would... It's just very much about toxic masculinity, this idea of what it is to be a man and to shed off these things and to not be able to have emotional connections with somebody else who's viewed as a man or whatever it may be, to be emotionally secure that way. And I love seeing Fitz really grow that way in his relationship with the Fool, that he's not going to put those barriers, those lines up. He's going to, that he loves him and he's okay with that. It's not a sexual love, but he doesn't need to define it.
It's just a true, deep friendship and companionship. That's what it is. It's a
bond.
Right. It's a bond. It's a love bond. A bond. And it's so, the Fool, I found the Fool, I think, has always been the most interesting character. In terms of there's just always so much to know. And the Fool has been the weave between all the stories so far. Mm-hmm. And the Fool, it's a real role reversal for the Fool, because the Fool's afraid, because the Fool knows that his prophecy is that I die here. And he's I'm trying so hard to be brave. But Fitz is also but I'm the changer, and how do I know that you're not supposed to, He
really challenges the Fool
in a way he never has before.
These visions, so to speak. But he gathers the Fool's body, and he's using the skill,
the skill pillars.
There it is, the pillars. And so he gets the Fool out, and it's through all of this thing where he really identifies now truly as the changer. He realizes he can do all these things. So he pulls from Thick, right? All of them come, don't they? It's not just him.
He gets everybody.
Mm-hmm. And goes in, and was it? No, it wasn't.
He skill healed the body. So, okay, well, first he brings him back to life, and then he heals the body. Those are two separate.
That's true.
Okay, so let's talk about the crown.
He doesn't heal the body. Oh yeah, the crown.
Okay,
there's this big intense thing because the Fool is dead.
The Fool died.
Decaying, dead.
And not died like the way Fitz died. Where Fitz's consciousness and spirit were actually with the wolf. So yeah. It's wild. It's a wild ride. You've got to read it for yourself. It's so good.
It's always the last one of a trilogy. It gets really convoluted because you're playing off of so many things that happened in the previous book. So it just gets a little hard to come in without any other prior knowledge.
So he brings the Fool
back to life.
And
they stay there for quite some time.
Yeah, while he's healing. And it's
because he doesn't want the tattoo on his back.
Yep.
So they strip that off, so his back has to heal too.
And
he's traumatized.
He's so traumatized.
But let's talk about how the Fool ends up getting to the islands. Because remember, they left him there. They didn't take him with him. When they were going to the islands, remember, they leave the Fool on the dock. How does the Fool end up getting there? Side note. When they get to the glacier where the dragon is, and they're really up on the cliff, there's the Fool looking down on him.
And he's like, I got tea.
Yeah. And they're like, and he asks him how he got there. He goes, I flew. And turns out that he used, because remember, he has his little skill fingers, so he can use the skill pillars. He goes to the dragon, land of the dragon.
He goes to Girl on Dragon.
And gets back on Girl on a Dragon. Ugh, still creeps me out. She flies him there, leaves him there, and goes off. All right, so
back to the healing in the dragon.
Sorry, but you had to know how he actually got there. You do have to know how
he got there, because it's important.
It was a cliffhanger.
It's important in a second one. Yeah. So in this process of healing, both physically and emotionally, there are so many really... It's just such an emotional conversation because...
Well, this is a time when Fitz becomes completely open and the Fool is erecting barriers because they're so damaged. And
the Fool
doesn't know what to do now because his prophecy.
Right. He says, I'm out of my time. I don't know. This is not, I've never seen a future where I live, so I don't know what to do. And Fitz, which I kind of love, just keeps throwing back at him. It's like, you told me I was a changer. I changed it. like, which I love.
But the whole idea of putting these memories into the memory stone, right? So we realize this in terms of, yes, you could go do that and leave your trauma behind, but you leave so much of yourself because your trauma really helps to define you. Yeah. And so there's a piece of Fitz missing since he had dumped so much to try and help wake Girl on a Dragon, right? So...
And Fitz is the one, because the Fool's like, I could go do what you did. And Fitz is like, don't. No. I realize now, and the Fool even says, I knew there was a difference in you as soon as you did it. And he does. Fitz realizes that he hasn't actually been living his life. He's just been alive.
It's a shadow of himself.
He's shadow himself. And he realizes that by taking all the memories of that away, he also dimmed any joy he could ever feel. Which I thought was such a really... It's just so beautifully written, and it was just something I thought about for a long time. I love when something leaves you thinking, and that whole... You are the culmination of your life experience.
And it's also about...
And how you deal with it and what you do with it.
And about having unexpected life experiences. Like this idea of surviving and what to do with yourself now. Like faced with a huge 180, which is what happens to the Fool, right? So, and how to move forward and realizing that his connection with Fitz can't continue, that he has to find or forge his own path because it had been so intertwined with Fitz's. And so when he makes a decision to leave Fitz is devastated. He doesn't know what that's going to be like, especially now. And it's bittersweet in that way because he finally had accepted all of the Fool and their relationship. I was very kind of slightly traumatized by the idea of him walking away.
Because they had, at this point, they've had very similar bonding experiences in terms of being each other's minders of skill. And they just, but on the same token, again, with it, a lot of it comes back to Nine Eyes because that's kind of his touch point and his reference. Because the Fool says, he's like, he's like, you and Night Eyes gave up a lot to be together. You didn't think that Molly would accept Night Eyes, and Night Eyes never ran with a pack or had a cub or anything like that because he chose to be with you. And he goes, and I'm not gonna have that. I'm not gonna let you choose. I'm going to withdraw and forge my own path, and you are gonna go live this life with these people who love you and care about you because you should. So the crown, the Fool had said, the crown was never for me. I always took it as part of a bargain I'd made. I'd made a bargain. And you find out that bargain was with Girl and Dragon. Because he goes and he puts the crown on Girl and Dragon. That the entities...
They were connected to.
Yeah, that they were connected to one of the people in the crown. And so when he gives Girl and Dragon a crown, which I knew Rachel would hate that whole scene because the girl comes to life again and Rachel hates that stuff.
I don't like it.
So she kisses the Girl and Dragon, takes the crown, turns around, kisses the Fool, and the Fool's like, whoa, and gives Fitz his memories back to the Fool. And then the Fool turns around and gives them to Fitz. And so Fitz is actually restored. All of those memories.
It's almost like he's been unforged as well, in a way.
Yeah. Full circle, guys. He comes unforged. And again,
and this allows him once again. But what I like about it, I think the most is when he comes back, he's not afraid anymore of people knowing who he was. I mean, when he does that big outburst in Molly's room and lets it out, even though it's
all the
kids, worst,
the kids are like
the worst place. It's that he doesn't care anymore. He's not going to stop living his life. That he really seizes
he's
it
really
back.
Accepted
and really
himself in all of this.
We also have the end result with Hap as well, which is his foster son. I really found Hap to be. That's the weakest. Like, I did not care for the whole storyline with Hap. If I have to make a complaint about this book, is I really couldn't care less. And Hap made some bad decisions when things were very obvious that girl was bad news. You know what I mean? Like,
I will say that's human nature again. Sometimes we know things are bad for us. I do think for me that Hap was really more of a character development tool for Fitz than his own thing. He really was just there to give Fitz those internal moments where he realizes
but his end thing, that he realizes he can sing, so no longer is he going to woodwork. He's going to
he's going to go be a minstrel.
Flippin' Starling.
He has a good memory, is what it turns out for the songs.
And that Starling said that he can have all of her songs because Starling's now pregnant, and so now Starling's going to become a good person because she's pregnant.
Still don't like Starling very much.
No,
but it's whatever.
No, I don't.
You can't like
she wants to turn over
like
everybody
in the book. You're going to hit me hard.
That didn't bother. Well, I was going to go with Riddle was how Riddle becomes the go-between for when Fitz is courting Molly.
That's true.
So I want to introduce Riddle, and that he's doing the go-between. So Fitz just starts to write her letters when he realizes that he has
send
to
candy.
send candy
to the kids. He's not dumb.
And then he gets, and so trying to get Molly to reciprocate, to start out some kind of line of communication, at least friendly. And that's what it starts off, where he's just kind of this distant
he's gonna
figure and start sharing their lives again.
Yeah.
And so, so then Molly will write back, too much candy. And so if it's, and then he's told, well, then he only sent candy to one of them. They have to send it to all of them. So he kind of learns how.
I do.
But Riddle's been going back and forth.
Yeah, he's
every
been
month
using Riddle as a
doing
messenger
this.
until eventually Molly's like, "Is he scared? Like, is he scared of me?" And
well, as soon as he finds out about that, he's like, vroom, out the door.
Yeah,
because he was waiting for Molly to tell him it's okay to come.
He did. He's like, he tells her and all of her children. They're like, why would you do this? Do you think you're going to marry your mom? He goes, I made a promise to your father that I would take care of you all, and that's what I'm going to do. He, at one level, it is about Molly, but he is also very upfront that this is about their father too, and that he does tell him, which it's such a hilarious scene to me, because he's like, he goes, and all Molly's children are there, including some very young, like very small children, 3 or so children. And he says, I'm his chivalry farseer, and I had the wit. And like, he just like spills all this information. She's like, that's a 3-year-old who doesn't know how to not keep secrets. You should not have done that. But also, I mean, he tells them, I did love your mom a long time ago before your dad did. And he goes, but I'm not here to replace your dad. Your dad told me to care for them the way he cared for me. And that's what I intend to do. Like, I do like.
It affects Nettle the most, since Nettle is his child.
And she knows it at this point.
And she knows she gets to meet him, and she didn't really want anything to do with him. But a lot of that too is just all of the secrets, that she was left in the dark. And that's one of the things, that Fitz wanted her to be left in the dark. But this is what we're talking about. Knowledge is always power. When people have all the information available to make good decisions. And so, yes, you can feel for Fitz keeping her in the dark, but it really hurt the development of their relationship. That's true. He kept it away, kept her out of it. She should have been trained from the get-go. He did her and Dutiful a disservice.
But I also think there's a timing element to truth but
he held on to it for way too long. He did
hold on to it too long in the end. But again, hindsight's 20/20. But I do think there's an element of truth.
He'd been told, "It's gonna blow in your face, man."
It is. Loved that she took her time closing this out. So often, I feel, in these big epic arcs. Let's take the Hunger Games, for example. All I got, or Harry Potter, all you got in terms of like epilogue and the rest of her life was these just a couple pages. That's it. Boom. And Peeta and I came back together, and now we have children. Boom. And you're like, what? She really
in the book.
She really, I mean, she probably took the last quarter of the book, maybe.
Well, I mean,
she took a long time
talking about.
She took them back.
Fitz and Molly.
She talked about
finding each other again.
Yeah, how those relationships adjusted. Not even just with Fitz and Molly. But
let's talk about patience.
Yeah, he talks about how there's a scene where many people, like Patience and Lacey, find out that he's alive.
Well, they come
and it
for the big celebration. Well, I love the scene when
I just love that she played it
in
out
the garden
for you to see.
And Fitz comes, and Lacey sees Fitz, and just, bam, she passes out. And Patience is like, what's wrong with you? And has no idea.
Totally misses it.
She does. Again. Well, I mean, initially, she can't see very well. Remember, she was always nearsighted.
Gets him up to her room and just,
as
she always has,
into him.
Gets him up there in her room and just lets him have it and just...
I have to know everything. Wants him to sit there and just play by play
of
everything that
you're
he's
falling
been
asleep.
doing.
She's like, no, I'm not. Tell me. He's like, it's 16 years, Mom. Like, she does say that. He does, when he pauses, like, I'm so sorry, Mom. She goes, fine, time to start calling me Mother now. She had been worried about it. She's angry. I love Patience. I've always loved Patience. I like that she's kind of eccentric and quirky. It's really, it's adorable. When she finds out, of course, that she's had this grandchild, and she's just, she's mad about being denied this relationship with her granddaughter. But then she sets them up. She makes sure that they're going to inherit that large property. Yeah. And in a way that Molly and Burke would have accepted.
So, let's rewind a little bit of what happened to Dutiful and the Narcheska.
Oh, Dutiful.
The Out Islands. So here's the thing. So when the Narchesca's mother and sister are reawoken, so to speak. And so then they find out about this deal. Well, Mom's like, I wasn't there for any of this arranging. She's supposed to inherit all of this stuff. Why should she go to this foreign kingdom? This isn't going to happen. She's stay here. Her kids have to be here. This isn't going to go.
Oh, no. They offered to send the sons to keep.
Yeah.
We'll keep the girls.
The daughters.
You can have
and
the
Dutiful's
boys.
like, and then Archeska had already agreed through all of this that she was going to go to the duchy. She's fighting to go to the duchy's mom's saying no. And she's like, but sister's here now, younger sister, you can train her to become the next Narcheska. And it'll be fine. And Mom's like, no. And not to mention, and Mom, you know, because it's all about those deals, right? All the arrangements, just like Bingtan, right? It's all about the trade. It's all about the bargains, right? He didn't fulfill the duty. There is not a dragon head laid across the hearth, right?
So Nettle.
So Nettle just skills out and just nails Tintaglia.
She Tintaglia.
Yes, and just bugs her and bugs her and bugs her.
She says, every time she went to sleep, I did what she did to me.
Yes.
And I just got in there and I just like a fly, just pew, pew, pew,
Yep.
pew, 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 pew.
She didn't have a connection with Icefire. So Tintaglia
She
gets
annoyed
Icefire to
Tintaglia.
fly back. And so Icefire literally breaks through the home, places his head on the hearth, lifts it up and flies away.
And you can just see, can you just like, the way she writes it.
But
Yeah, the way she writes it,
good.
you can just feel the annoyance of Icefire.
Just having
fine.
to do this.
Bam.
It's awful.
Okay, let's go.
Well, and it's important to talk about why Icefire coming. This is really important because of the dragons having to mate and fight. That is really important, right? We mentioned that a little bit before. The cocoon dragons. Well, obviously, we're going to pick up with that with the dragon quartet to find out what's happening with these poor kind of malformed dragons, these weak dragons. What's going to happen with them? So. But
that is
did
the
like
segue.
That.
What a great scene. I love, and that's the thing is like, I love that Rob and Hobbs let all of that play out where you could see it and you could watch and you watched. I mean, now mind you, they can't go into detail about everything, but like it gives you enough, like you saw that relationship.
Closure.
So much closure. And the last line of the whole book is so beautiful. I am content.
Long journey to get there. Well, he's in his 30s.
9 books to get to that line.
I mean, there's
I'm
years
count
of
that
his
time.
life. Yeah. There's years of, I mean, it covers those years.
Sure,
It just doesn't
fine.
talk about him.
Okay, on conservative, 6 books. Still a lot, my God.
But we still have 3 more
read a
Fitz.
lot.
We know it's not over, but could Hobb have ended this series here?
I think that Hobb could have ended the whole series right here. Now, time will tell, because I feel like, and you are absolutely correct that there are, you know, the dragon.
You gotta find out about the.
You need to find out of them, but I actually feel like there's enough of a conclusion here, knowing that there are 2 adult viable dragons. That, you know, and that dragons will exist again. I feel like you get enough closure on those storylines that you could be fine. So I don't know, and I'm not gonna go find out, guys, if this was like her, because she's 9 books in. If Robin Hobbs was like, I'm gonna stop here and then just see how I feel, because I feel like you could stop the series here. Now
it could have been a conclusion for Fitz's story. It's not a conclusion for the realm of the Elderlings, because the fool goes off. I want to know what the fool does.
I do, but it's like one of those, like, I want to know, but
because
I'm also,
you get no closure for the fool.
But I'm also satisfied. Like,
satisfied.
He's going back to the school to give
well,
them
he
the.
says he's
He
gonna
tells
go.
you, he's like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna go give them the benefit of hindsight, and I was like, why has no one thought of this before? He's like, we're gonna go interpret those prophecies, and we're gonna change the way they do things. Like, we're gonna basically take our life experience.
I mean, it certainly seems like she could potentially have left it, but I had to know what's going to happen with those malformed dragons, because it's not fair to set up the whole Live Ship Traders trilogy. Was about these serpents being able to cocoon and become dragons. You can't leave them.
We have 7 more books, so like I know she continued. I thought this book was. I was actually so satisfied.
This is a satisfactory end for Fitz.
It was not. It was a little bit difficult to pick up the next book because I was just so satisfied with the ending of this book.
It was really good.
This might be the best book yet.
Well, we're not going to talk about.
We're not talking about our ratings.
We're going to have a special episode in which we look at what
at the end. We'll look at all of our ratings. Although I think we both
the best
agree.
book or the worst book.
If you look at our text chain, I think it's pretty obvious that we both really loved this book.
This was the bee's knees so far.
So
put it that way,
guys. It's worth reading the other 8 books to get to this one.
You act like the other 8 books were torturous.
No, I'm just saying. No, that's what I'm saying. It's like, but if people say, "Oh, that's the best one," I should just read that one.
Oh no.
No.
I disagree.
You gotta read. No, that's what I'm saying. Is like, don't watch this and think, "Oh, I'll just read that one."
Mm-mm. And I'm not disagreeing with you, but like
you gotta go on the
other
whole
reviewers
journey.
that have talked about Hobbs. I've seen some that have skipped the Farseer trilogy just to read the Live Ship Traders. I know that it's ranked the highest overall in terms of enjoyment. I get that. But you're still going to cut yourself short from all of the great Easter eggs, the connection with the Fool, if you don't read the Farseer trilogy.
Yes, you're not going to get that same emotional depth.
You have to get Fitz's backstory. You have to get his initial development story with Night Eyes, and that has to happen.
You got to go on the journey.
You've got to do it. I completely 110% disagree with people telling you or recommending you to read these out of order. There's a reason they go in this order. There are things that pull from those previous books that you're going to miss. And that doesn't mean that you can't read the Live Ship Trader trilogy on its own and not think that they're great. Obviously, they're still great books, but it's just so much more. You're gonna lose out.
Experience, that depth of knowing the characters, because you come to know them so
well. But the Live Ship
deeply.
Trader, the only one you get is the Fool, but the Fool is
so important. It's so important.
You really
and
do.
The Live Ship, we're going back to that area. We're going back towards Beantown and the Rain Wilds. Like, so you would have missed, You need to know. You need to know about Selden. You need to go on the journey.
You need to know about just all of it. So the experience for me in terms of reading this book would be like going to Hogwarts, that you are 11, you got your letter, you've been accepted to Hogwarts, you've ridden the train, and it's so exciting, got to try all those new treats, right? And then you get there and it's the, what do you call it? It has a special name.
Oh, the beginning of term feast.
The beginning of term feast, where everything delectable is laid out. It just appears. You didn't have to work for it. You didn't have to make any of that food, and it's there, and it's all hot, and it's delicious, and you're just so excited because everything's great, and new things are happening, and it's just wonderful. That's my rating. How weird is that? But that's it. It's like a whole experience. It's not even just about the food. It's about what an emotional high you get from reading it. It's just so good. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that it did conclude so well, that you really feel that the majority of the characters in the story, you felt good. There was a lot of closure. Seeing a lot of those characters come back, like Patience and Molly, Burke, that you were just so happy, especially if you really bonded with them with the Farseer trilogy and everything, to have them come back now that he's older and is making better decisions, really taking control of his life. All of that is just so good. Delicious. Yeah. So good. You're there for it, all of it. It's great.
I know, and I was like, I can't. It
so
feels
satisfying.
I feel like
I can't lay it out on a specific
an individual dish, right? It's too hard. There's too many things in here. It's too complex. It'd have to be something where you're just so excited. Like if you're going on a trip and you've researched it, if you're like a foodie, where like there's this like 5-star, like some Michelin starred restaurant, and you really, really want to go, and you're just so excited because it's not just about the food. It's about the ambiance. It's everything. Yeah. The atmosphere. The whole shebang, guys.
The whole shebang. This is it. This is a good book, guys.
This is the book.
Yeah. Well, what are you going to rate this?
I'm going to agree with yours. I'm going to cop out.
So next book we have, this is book 10.
Book 10.
Dragon Keeper. All right. So this is volume 1 of the Rain Wilds Chronicles. All right.
We're actually doing 2. Should we tell them?
That is true. We are doing 2. So we will be doing Dragon Keeper and Dragon Haven. So books 1 and 2. There are 4 instead of 3 for the Rain Wilds Chronicles. It is the only quartet.
Are going to do
confession time.
Confession. Story time.
We have finished Dragon Keeper.
We finished Dragon Keeper.
We're on this one.
Yeah. So we're going to do the next 2 books together from the Rain Wilds Chronicles because they're also a little bit shorter.
And not just that, Robin Hobb, once again, like she does between her first and second ones. She hit that page number and bloop, the story just stops. So it just picks right up. So it'll just be kind of a continual flow. We will try the best we can to make sure that we divide those things. Because that's what's hard for me when I read series, is they all start to blend together and I forget how, like when one stops, the other one picks up.
Yeah. But, if you're enjoying this journey with us, like and subscribe. If you have thoughts about this series, please leave them in the comments. We love interacting with you in the comments. And next time, we'll see you for the first 2 books of the Rain Wilds Chronicles. See you next time.
Right. Bye.
Bye.
especially when you're looking at 16 books, you get involved. You're there, and you have to read them all. You're just not going to get that immersion.
You gotta read them all.